Oh, I didn't do the countdown. We're live.
All right. No countdown.
No countdown today.
This is the least professional live streaming duo ever.
I think it's endearing.
All right. Yeah. At some point we'll get like a sweet studio and I won't use the fake background. Get like actual plants like the bankless guy.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So
there's no one here yet. I think there's one person here.
That's what I thought. Maybe we should actually wait a little bit. Did you announce?
I will do it now. I did it in the.
Let's actually tell people that we're doing it. Yeah, you said like hours ago. Let's do another.
I did it in the Telegram. I'll do it on Twitter now.
Cool. Oh yeah, cool.
Cool. Posted on Twitter.
So I have a question for you. Did we actually cut an official release off the most recent release?
Well, every release gets cut. You mean did I put it on the doc site?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like officializing.
No.
All right.
But we can.
Yeah. Well, only because it has support for decimals in it, which the old one actually doesn't. I'm pretty sure, because the app itself doesn't recognize the decimal point. And we also have the bug fix for if you try to use the order hash to make your order state unique, preventing it from panicking on the context grid. So those are two, like they're minor in a tech sense, but I think in terms of usability, they're pretty big. So maybe we should just use that version for what we're doing today, actually.
Yeah. Just grab the latest.
Yeah, grab the latest. So good fixes in there. Most of the work we did this week was contract side, actually. There wasn't so much work on the app itself. So everybody who is hanging out for filtering on the orders page, sorry.
It's coming.
It's coming. Well, Josh has been traveling, so that's his excuse.
Yeah. Although it is pretty cool that I helped the team win at East Berlin.
Yeah, that is cool.
They won the freedom. Actually, you mentioned like they should have. I should have told them to use block.coinbase.
Yeah.
Yeah, they actually preferred it that way because they were like
with the sender.
Yeah, because then it's a different. You're doing the bounty on a different level.
Yeah, I didn't look too much into it. I was just like, oh, this is like an option.
Actually, you can split it between both. You could say the person who steals the transaction and the person who includes it both get a reward.
Yeah, you could totally do both. I guess the reason it's there is exactly so people can do stuff like this. It's probably not that common, but it would be appreciated. Like I run some validators with the MEV boost on, and it's noticeable when you get like kickbacks from.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the MEV stuff. Yeah, it's like a good percentage of a block when you get a block, compared to the base consensus, which is actually like not super high. I'd say about it's about a third. It's a pretty big chunk actually of just like all this crazy MEV stuff. So
do you have any like OFAC censoring on yours?
Do I have to answer that on a live stream that's recorded?
Sorry. Is MEV boost?
Okay, I'm not American. Doesn't matter.
Is MEV boost censored by default?
It's up to the proposer. But do you know where I got my proposers from? I got them from Lido. So their DAO votes on a list of sources for the MEV boost, and then they're all on chain. So I just went to their contract and I copied and pasted all of the ones out of there. And yeah, some of them don't do the censoring. So neither is Lido. So if you hold staked ETH, you're doing the same thing I'm doing, literally. It's pretty crazy.
That's pretty crazy.
A big thing like that is just like, just going for it. And no one's really like calling them on it. So shall we load up something with decimals in it?
Yeah, do you want to put the R?
Yeah. Let's get into it. This is the big thing that we have been talking about. So I've got some, the pub strats. So if anyone's wanting to follow along, there is a repo of public strategies that are just examples. Some things are sort of designed to be actually used in production. Some things are just examples for learning. And generally, that's what I like pulling up on these calls. Josh likes to just freestyle on the call. I don't think it's actually worked out once in the entire history of the calls, but that's all right. It's fun.
Last time my auction was last,
Yeah. Oh, that's another thing that's in the latest version of the Raindex, which is a really nice one, which is that you don't have to specify the vault ID anymore, because that was the thing that didn't work on the last live stream for you, remember?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really annoying.
I kept getting colliding. Have you got this?
Yeah.
Cool. So I just pulled up a random strategy from the pub strats. Didn't overthink it. So what we had previously in the input and outputs here on the orders is you had to manually specify a vault ID. Now, if you just don't provide one at all, it'll just get randomly generated as soon as you deploy the order. It'll be the same ID for all of the inputs and the outputs, which it basically just assumes that you want to have a dedicated vault ID across the whole order, which means that if you put in the same token twice on the inputs and the outputs, you can actually rotate your capital. So that's a pretty normal thing that people are going to want to do, is as soon as they buy something, they're going to want to consider selling it again, right? Like that's a pretty normal thing that people do when they're trading. So, I mean, that's what Uniswap does. It doesn't do it all at once, but it does it incrementally. So you want to have the same vault ID so that your capital is actually available to go back the other direction if you program it that way. So that's all implied now. We have decimals here. So previously when you had 1E18, which was the convention on, which is the convention on chain for what 1 is when it's a decimal, that is now just 1. So 0.1 is E17, 0.01 is E16, 0.001 is E15, and so on. So if you want to, for some reason, if you want what used to be 1, now you go back the other way. So previously, if you wanted 1 as a decimal 1, you would write 1E18, and then 1 as an integer 1 would be 1. Now it's the opposite. So 1, when you write it into your strategy, is 1E18. So 1 in the order is 1E-18, right?
But basically, when would someone actually want to write 1E-18?
That's a good question. So hopefully as little as possible.
Yeah.
So
I feel like the thing,
hopefully you don't have to, which is why the awkward one is the one that we are hoping you never have to do. We've gone from the default being the awkward one to the rare thing being the awkward one, which is probably better UX principles. So look, an example would be you're doing something with the token right? Like an ERC20 token. And for whatever reason, it hasn't stipulated any decimals, which is pretty rare, actually. And so you're dealing with a very raw token where its token balances they don't have decimals. So it's almost like the fungible token is an NFT, almost like NFTs don't actually. That no, we haven't converted NFTs yet, but that would, so it's almost like that, like when there is no decimals and you're dealing with a token like that. If you are dealing with a token like that, hopefully you know, and you're in a very small minority of people. So in that case, yeah, you'd have to use the -18 thing, or no, you'd have to do it that way to convert it. So it's, I actually don't know any tokens off the top of my head that work that way. I just know that it's possible in theory. So we have to support it because it's in the spec, but
Yeah.
it's not a thing that you have to worry about generally. So yeah, that's the cool stuff for functionality wise. A couple of other minor things we've got. Now is a new word that's coming up that is the same as block timestamp. We've got, have some, all the new subpassers automatically use the new decimal stuff. So if you're using the Uniswap words previously, when you wanted to convert, when you wanted to get a spot price or something, and you wanted to say, you know, give me the price of ETH in terms of Bitcoin, you would have to send the decimals of the two tokens to the Uniswap word so that it could do the conversion for you. And now it's just going to try to use the decimals that are available on chain. So you don't have to do that. So that's quality of life stuff. Yeah, basically just grooming the contracts. So what we're trying to work up to is a bit more automation around the sub passes so that we can, on the different networks, generate sub passes which are targeted towards the specific network. So if you're on Arbitrum, right, there's a DEX Camelot, which is a Uniswap compatible DEX called Camelot that has a specific factory that is separate from the regular Uniswap ones. So we want there to be a word where you could get the prices from Camelot specifically, right? But Camelot isn't on any other network. There's different Uniswap compatible AMMs on Flare, right? There's the Enosis and the Blaze, and there's different ones on Polygon, right? So, yeah, the process of having that many subpasses and having like dedicated words per network basically just needs some automation so that we can generate them. So we could basically say, here's the factory, here's the name of the DEX that goes with that factory, and then it just spits out the words automatically. So when we deploy that subpasser, then you have the words on that network for that specific AMM. Otherwise, people are going to be dealing with the internals of the factories and the init code hashes and stuff themselves. So that's kind of what we're working on now to avoid exposing those low-level details to people as much as possible. Yeah. So that's kind of a bit of a long-winded dev update, but yeah, there's been all of that going on.
It's a pretty big improvement.
Yeah, they're like small things, but I'm hoping they add up to big things, which is just like overall usability for the DEX for people. We've basically been watching where people get stuck while they're learning, and then yeah, but these are basically the things we've seen people get stuck on. So these are the things we fixed. And I think one of the next things will also be that Wallet Connect issue on Linux, where people in Linux are not able to, they can use Ledger, but they can't use Wallet Connect. So should try to fix that up as well.
Yeah, I think someone responded to one of our tweets before. again, saying that they would have participated in the competition if it wasn't just for Mac.
That's a fair point. It is a fair point. I agree.
This is just the downside of making a standalone app. It's a little bit extra. It's like we're back to like old school web development where you have to like figure out support for all the browsers individually.
I was there. I was making websites in Internet Explorer 6. Not that bad. It is a shadow of that pain. But yeah, I hear you. Like, the nice thing about browsers is that there's only one browser that survived.
Yeah, well, also they make an effort now to make sure that they actually work.
That's true. That's true.
Funnily enough, Tari actually uses that. Tari piggybacks off that cross compatibility as well.
It does. It does. It's not so at the same time, I think once we actually get the Windows and Linux support set up and we get the like properly with the bundling and everything, and not sort of the workaround thing where people have to get the shared libraries themselves or whatever. Once we get all of that figured out, it'll probably be fairly stable because of what you said. Like the Tari stuff should handle it because the GUI is actually just web rendered under the hood. It's pretty much just a prioritization thing. I know new people wanted to join the competition, and I would have loved to them join the competition, but we also did have some people who were in the competition and they were getting stuck on things, and so
prioritize people already in.
Yeah, no, it's not about like it's not about playing favorites. It was more like if we know people are going to get stuck on something, what's the point of bringing in even more people to get stuck on the same thing, right? Like they'll load it up on Windows, and then they'll just run into the exact same issue. So we wanted to actually make sure it was going to be smooth, and then bring more people in, right? So. Yeah, once we're feeling like, yeah, cool, it's smooth, like people are using it and they're not running into like really basic stuff, like this decimals thing, then yeah, let's bring more people in. Like, let's figure out Linux, let's figure out Windows, whatever.
By the way, change topic a little bit. There's now another stable on Flare.
Oh, that is great news. It launched.
I'm trying to figure out if you can actually get it right now or not.
I knew it was coming. That's exciting if it's there.
How to buy it? Oh, you can only buy it right now by contacting them. But maybe they can still. Maybe it's still got liquidity on. Let's look at the next screener.
Oh yeah. Also, all my flipper dippers are completely useless because the market just moved so intensely.
Oh really?
Well, flipper dippers only work in a range, right? So I think recently we've pretty much moved out of whatever range we might have been in. Although I'm not entirely sure what's going on with this one, because you would have thought that this one would have traded back actually. So maybe this one is broken. That's interesting. Let's have a look. Yeah, I reckon this one's broken.
Oh, this is the ETH one?
This is a new one that I put up because I wanted to try something new. And in doing so, I think I broke something. Because, I mean, it sold Flare into Tether, and then it sold Tether into ETH. So it's currently in ETH, which just recently went up a lot, like 20-something% in an hour or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So you would have expected it to rotate out into something else at some point. This is on the 24th, so this is 4 days ago. So I reckon something's broken here. So I pulled the other flipper dippers down because they actually did leave the range. And even though they were working, I was like, cool, I'm just going to retire them. I pulled all the funds out. I shut the orders down, and I put this one up to test.
How do you know that they've left the range?
I mean, no one really knows. It just seems like the market moved a lot.
So you mean that the last ratio that you could see, the ratio of the last trade that you could see, you couldn't see yourself getting a better deal anytime soon?
Basically, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just looked at it and was like, this looks done. I made an executive call and just pulled it. Also because they were just experimental, right? Like I went over them on the last call. Like one of them made like 20%, one of them made like 0.001%, one of them made like -5%. Like I kind of learned the lessons that I wanted to learn from them. So most of the value in those was experimenting with the strat itself rather than trying to have an actual market strategy. So I feel like I got all the value out of the learning. Shame that this one's broken somehow, but I didn't really check it, so I'm not that surprised. So I reckon that, oh no, that's right, yeah. Cool, I'll try to get this one fixed before the next stream, because I think this one might be a bit more interesting, because it's using the decimals, and it's also supposed to be a three-way flipper. So something is, it's doing the initialization. So it is doing the Dutch auction to self-initialize itself into this and then into this, but then it seems to get stuck once it's initialized. So I'll have to look into that. Figure that out.
That's cool. I don't think there is a USDX pool just yet.
All right, I want to get this fixed before there is, because I want to set this up on stables. I think it'd be really interesting to compare this with volatiles and this with stables. I think that'll be a nice comparison. And also, I would like to write something that isn't just more flipping and dipping, because there's more that you can do with Raindex than just flip a dipper. I want to get this dollar cost average, then selling strategy.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to do that too soon, because I think someone might be entering something similar into the competition. So I don't want to be putting something up on pub strats and derailing something that somebody might be trying to do.
Yeah, fair enough. What was Ace was asking something.
Yeah.
For us to go through today. I don't think he's on this stream, but maybe if he watches it, or if they watch it back later.
Yeah, that was about arbitrage, but I'm not exactly sure. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the idea there was. So the question was about routing on chain. So I wanted to see if it's possible to scan the pools available and make a trade if there's a chance of profit. Output Tether or Flare. Input would be Flare, ETH, QNT, Tether.
Do they mean like make two trades basically?
Yeah, so as I understand it, which could be wrong because I don't feel like I totally understand it, is that I think this is responding to the fact that there are two dexes on Flare, and they might have different prices for the same token. It's totally normal. So you want to do something to try and take advantage of that, right? If you want to do an arbitrage.
Can you do that with Raindex?
That was the question, is like, how would you want to take advantage of that? Because if those two external pools are out of sync with each other, right, then basically any arbitrage is just going to split the difference. You're going to move one of them up and the other one down, and they're going to meet in the middle, and then there no longer will be an arbitrage opportunity, right?
Do you mean you're gonna, when you say you are going to do this, do you mean you're going to do this from your strategy, or just mean just anybody?
I'm talking very abstract. I'm just saying, like, if there's an arbitrage opportunity out there,
Yeah.
on a AMM, which is Uniswap based, which is, we all know the algorithm, constant product. You know, when you're buying from one, it's going to slippage up, and when you're selling it to the other one, it's going to slippage down, and then they'll meet in the middle, and there'll be no arb left at some point.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So the question is, like, you can already, so no, the people who are running the arbitrage bots, the solvers that would be looking for arbitrage opportunities, they're the ones who are also looking to clear the trades on Raindex, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if they already know about this really good arbitrage opportunity that exists, my question was just, why wouldn't they just take the arbitrage opportunity for themselves? Why would they cut the Raindex strategy in on the deal? Why wouldn't they just go straight to the arb and arb it for themselves? Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know exactly what's proposed for the strategy, where the strategy can inject itself into this scenario somehow, and it makes sense and everybody makes profit. Like, if there is, then great, we should write it, but I'm not sure exactly what the proposal is to make it so that the most profitable thing for the bot to do is to do something that involves Raindex and the two external AMMs, rather than just doing something directly between the AMMs. Do you know what I mean?
I think you could look at it more broadly, and you could say that the arb bot, well, the solver is an arb bot, and when you trade, it's not like the solver is acting on your behalf, actually, even though it may feel like that. You're just one of the things that's being arbed. So you are you're not the arbor. you can't be, because you're the thing that's being arbed. So it's not possible for you to take an arb opportunity, because you're the one getting arbed.
Right. Like, that's how you're paying for the service of somebody else submitting orders on your behalf. So trying to write an arb strategy is kind of like saying, like, hey, how about I dock your pay and you do the service anyway?
Yeah, but you can arb over time, right? Because like a stable coin strategy, where you've got inputs and outputs all the same, like what we call sloshy.
Yeah, sloshing around. Yeah.
But that is an arb strategy. But in that case, you're arbing over time, not in the moment.
Yeah. I think
you're making and you're not actually even arbing. You're making a claim about
speculating.
You're speculating about what you'd expect an asset to do. And your speculation is that stable coins want to be stable. It's not actual arbitrage.
Oh yeah. Well, if a stable depegs, then some people in the market, I mean, just ignoring somebody just fat fingering and like dumping a whole stable coin market with some whale. Like, some people think the stable coin has a problem and is less valuable than its face value. And some people don't think it has a problem, so they're willing to buy it. So it's that disagreement in the market that makes the strategy profitable if you're right and the stablecoin doesn't have a problem.
Yeah.
right? But if it does have a problem, you're the one who's left holding the bag. So
Yeah,
it's not really arbitrage, because arbitrage is like, you're not really taking on that risk. I mean, holding a stable coin might not feel risky, but it is. Like, we've seen stable coins blow up quite a few times in crypto history.
Arbitrage is finding a discrepancy in a moment.
Yeah.
It's supposed to
You're
be
trying to find a mechanical discrepancy rather than a speculative discrepancy.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be somewhat atomic, right? Although I imagine in practice, in real markets, especially off-chain ones, arbitrage probably a lot of the time isn't atomic. But there's some delay.
Hummingbot has arbitrage built into it, and it uses centralized exchanges, so there's no way it could be atomic. So yeah, it's not. It's just as close as you can get to being atomic, realistically. And then you try not to get front run in the process, because then you lose the arb to the front runner and you're left holding the bag because you couldn't close out the other leg of it. But all of this is not what Raindex does. So everything we're describing is the other side of Raindex, which is how the trades actually get fulfilled.
Yeah. You're always one of the things getting arbed.
Yeah. So the goal is to make that as efficient as possible, so that the bots will do it for as small an arbitrage opportunity as possible, for as cheap as possible. So then your order goes through as close to the market rate as it possibly can, which on Flare is pretty close. We're talking like a very small fraction of a cent is the arb opportunity that is enough for it to clear, because the fees are so low. But on Ethereum mainnet, the arbitrage opportunity has to be quite a bit larger, because there's a lot more gas to cover and a lot more risk. So we've seen needing arbitrage opportunities upwards of $100 for it to be worth clearing when it was a heavy congestion on the network. So it really depends on network conditions and a lot of other things. But yeah, I think that's a roundabout way of me saying we should get some more details before we like try writing a strat around this. There could be something there in like comparing AMMs. Like, definitely there could be a strategy where you look at two different assets on AMMs, and then if you see a large discrepancy for the same asset, then that means something to you, right? Like, that indicates something's happening in the market and you want to respond to it. But I think we need a bit more.
How would you take advantage?
Exactly what that is.
Yeah, how would you take advantage of that, though, from a perspective of being the thing that gets arbed?
I mean, maybe not trying to like arbitrage it directly, but maybe you use it as like an indicator that something is happening. Like, if you see a lot of volatility, a lot of inefficiency, like maybe that's an indicator that you feed into like another strategy, right?
Could you do two quick trades? Could you do an auction where you take the worst price, so the R-bot will go, oh, there's a great opportunity, but I have to take the worst one because that's the one that's happening sooner. And then you flip it and you go the other way, knowing that there's a spread available on the market because it's two AMMs, and the R-bot would go the other direction and take the better option in this case because it's around the other way. So you basically,
I mean, look, you can write a strategy. Okay, look, I'm going to take back everything I just said. You can write a strategy that would look at the same asset on two different AMMs, let's say Enosis and Blaze. Let's say they're 10% different on ETH, right?
yeah.
It could set its own prices at just above and below each of those AMMs.
Yeah.
And then hope that the bot doesn't notice that there is a route that is even more profitable if it just did the same thing itself. And I think for our bot, that would be true. But you're basically just kind of exploiting our bot at that point. So I don't know if I should put that on like a recorded live stream, but I mean, it's not that much of an exploit. It's just, I don't actually think that our bot specifically has any logic to short circuit a trade and try to play two AMMs off against each other. So you could, so what I'm saying is you could actually write an arbitrage strategy in Raindex, but it's not working because your strategy is working. It's working because the bot is so stupid that it doesn't know that it can make more money by reading the strategy and then just going and taking the arbitrage opportunity for itself. So short to medium term, you could probably write this strategy, but I'm not going to show you how because I don't want to show you how to exploit the stupidity of this bot that we wrote.
Yeah, but also you imagine that in any, like if we've got a bot that is what we're running, you'd have to imagine that if there's a significant discrepancy that somebody else probably already has one. Like, I don't know why there wouldn't be people running arbitrage bots on every new chain. Like seems like a pretty good strategy if you're someone that runs bots. It's just like, oh, there's a new chain. I'm just going to point my R bot at it.
Yeah.
And just
100%. But that said, I saw it. The ETH depeg by a lot, by like $200. It was like,
but that was against ETH though, right?
True.
Which doesn't exist on Flare, like, and
so isn't ETH just bridged ETH? Like it's not even. I mean, okay, technically it's just okay. It's technically a stable coin, and so yeah, maybe a depeg. But if it's just straight bridged ETH, like a $200 discrepancy is pretty big. Somebody must have taken advantage of that. It literally meant you could just take your ETH from Flare and then move it onto Ethereum and then sell it and make $200. It's a pretty big discrepancy. If you bridged one ETH, you would make $200. So if you have more than one ETH, you could make a lot more.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe the bridge wasn't working.
That's, yeah, maybe. Yeah, I actually don't know what happened. I'm just saying that, I'm just saying I have seen inefficiencies in new chains. Like they're not as, people should do that. People should absolutely take their sweet bots and they're in some highly competitive environment like ETH and then stick them on a new chain and probably they'd have no competition for like 6 to 12 months.
Yeah. So what we're saying is you can arbitrage like assets actually, because say there was another bridged version of ETH on Flare, you could use Raindex to arb between those two if you held one of them already.
Yeah. If you trust the bridge, then you're good.
Yeah. Well, if you trust the bridge so far as do you think that this asset should go back to, even if you're not going to personally bridge it, you're assuming somebody else will at some point, and therefore the price will return back to what it should be.
In this case, in this particular case, it was pretty egregious. You literally, as far as I understand, maybe I'm missing something, but literally, if you had one of these bridged ETH, you just unbridge it. It's like unwrapping it, and then you get $200. It was like that simple. But I don't see this kind of thing very often. This was a short-lived thing. It was like weird enough that I was like, oh, that is very strange. But these things do happen occasionally, I guess.
But I'm just trying to think how you take advantage of that with Raindex. So because we have the FTSO Oracle, so we know what ETH should be, we should cost, right? So if we noticed that the ETH depegged often enough, we could compare the current ETH price with, well, we could just say we'll buy ETH when it's this far below the Oracle price. And we'll sell it when it returns to the Oracle price.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. You could just leave that running. And then basically it would just run while you sleep, and then you might wake up one day with like a few ETH in your wallet, and then you go sweet, and then you go and like unbridge them. But the thing is, like, what are you buying them with? Because you still have the price risk of whatever you had.
Well, say you're buying it with stables.
Yeah. So
it means you're getting cheap ETH.
You have a price risk. Yeah, you're buying cheap ETH, but then also you have the price risk because ETH itself could dump relative to the stable at the same time that you're trying to do the arbitrage. So this is why it's cool that we have more than one stable on Flare now. And it's why it's cool that there's multiple stables on other chains, because this is exactly the situation where you want to be taking advantage of these situations with like assets. If there was another ETH token on Flare and then one of them dipped massively, then you could play them off against each other, like automatically.
Yeah, otherwise it's difficult because I could buy ETH and it was down 200, and then I say, well, I'm going to sell when ETH goes back to the Oracle price. But by the time it returns to the Oracle price, ETH is actually down 400 on what it should have been when it was down 200. And so I lost money because I now have less. Even though technically I got ETH cheap, I still sold it for even less.
Yeah, exactly. So we have two pretty good strategies for taking advantage of this, I would say, if you have like assets, and let's actually put them up once the second stable goes up on Flare. Let's put them up to celebrate. Because like I said, the second one, I think someone's going to enter it in the competition, so I don't want to do anything with it before that goes up. But yeah, fair. let's assume that all goes through and that all happens before, and then we actually have like a version of that strat. Probably won't be exactly the same, but something similar to it. It'd be cool to have a look at the averaging and exiting approach versus the flipper dipper approach, right? Because one of them is like an endless Dutch auction, and the other one is like I'm buying, and then when I get a pump, I'm selling, and I'm getting all out in like one go.
Yeah.
So it'd be cool to cross-reference those two things at the same time and compare them.
Yeah, that's a cool idea. Yeah, we should definitely write some slosh strats when the stables go live.
Yeah, because both of those should work with like assets, because it's all relative, right? Like a pump on stables could be like 0.05%, but that's still a pump.
Yeah.
When two things are supposed to be exactly the same, and then one of them changes by some amount.
I'm trying to think what other strats we could do. I think it'd be cool on these, maybe on like one of these calls would be to grab like a traditional strategy and try to port it. Or at least discuss how you would do something similar with Raindex.
Yeah, we have a bunch of examples in pub strats for real basic things like limit orders, etc. But they're not really strategies. It's almost like you're simulating a GUI for a traditional order book. So
yeah, which is cool because you can't do those things on chain. Well, you can, but you have to go find someone who's built that DEX that allows you to do a stop limit. You don't have this like I can make up my own features, build my own features type thing. So I think that is still cool.
I mean,
But
we have the tranche strat, which is kind of like a grid strategy. We haven't really talked about that one at all on any of the calls, and it's one of the. We just did a blog post on it.
Actually, yeah, we should. Then that's what we should do next stream.
And Dave's been talking about that in the channel. He's made money off it. People like strategies where you make money off them. It seems like a pretty reasonable thing to go over on a call. And also, I think it's really easy to understand once you see it in action. I think it takes a little bit to click it first, but once you get it and see it working, you're like, oh, right, it's just like selling here and buying here, right? Like it's quite straightforward conceptually.
Yeah, that would be good to go through next time.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we didn't get any questions this time, but I'll upload this anyway, and people can watch it back.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're going to try to be more consistent and do something every week at around the same time and just keep doing it because I think that'll be easier for everybody.
Yeah, and maybe we could even come up with a structure for these. Like we could have like a vague structure of how we want to like do each one. We could have like an update section, and then like a predefined topic that we're going to go into, and then do a Q&A section.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think the first few we were kind of just explaining what's going on, and people were joining, being like, "What is going on?" And then we're explaining it. But I feel like we kind of moved past that, and now let's get into trying to do more interesting things. And if people need the explainer, they can go and rewatch the earlier episodes. I think we can try to do a bit more ambitious or like a bit more sophisticated things in the strategies that we put up, or the things that we talk about, or the things we demonstrate.
It would also be really cool to have guests.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Especially ones that know about trading.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get some guests.
Right. Even just some degens. Get some degens to come on.
Yeah, I'm down for that.
Or someone who's interested in writing a strategy but really has doesn't know where to start, and they've got an idea, and we can work with them on the call. They can explain what their idea is, and then we can try building it.
Yeah, why not?
Live coding is a little bit of pressure, but it is cool, and I think it's possible. It should be more and more possible to do like basic live coding.
To be honest, like every time we've tried to do the live coding, it hasn't worked, but there's been a reason for it, and the reason has been pretty minor. Like literally last time, I think you just had a typo in the vault ID, and it was giving you an error. So doing that in that process, okay, we realized two things. One was like that error wasn't clear enough, and two, it's kind of annoying having to put the vault ID in every single time, which I think we already knew, but it just kind of like solidified that. So going through that process and running into these things that seem really minor, but then when you are on a call, a live stream, and you're under pressure and you're trying to get things working, and then that's the thing that trips you up, it really like shines a new light on it, and then you're like, okay, cool, like that's the thing that we should like really fix now. And then we did fix it. So the fact that we actually went back after the call and changed the app so that that'll never happen again, I think is where we got some value out of that. So if we keep doing that, it'll just be easier and easier.
Yeah, I don't even mind. I don't mind if it's like it's a bit chaotic and it doesn't work. Like that's the fun of it.
Yeah, as long as it's getting better each time, like.
Which it is.
It is. I mean, it has. I spent like the first 10 minutes just rambling about things that have improved.
Awesome. Well, I'll upload this and we can let people know to rewatch it, because I think we actually went some good stuff.
Cool.
All right. Bye, everyone.
See ya.